is very clear on this matter. The second factor that hinders devolution is the deliberate failure by the Jubilee administration to devolve all county functions. You know, it doesn't make sense to devolve, and again the Constitution is very clear, you devolve a function that must be accompanied by resources. It doesn't make sense to devolve a function like health, and then you see most of the funding goes to the referral hospitals and very little. Therefore, you end up with a situation like is facing the country now, a crisis in the health sector. I think I'll mention something a little later. By the way, Chairman, I wasn't given the amount of time available. I'll try and do the best I can. It is worrying that Jubilee has completely refused to devolve health functions to the counties, withholding most of the cash meant for the health sector at the headquarters while leaving the devolved units cash-strapped. There is also the problem of unnecessary delays by the Treasury in releasing funds meant for county governments, causing serious disruptions to service delivery. Failure to remit the monies on time not only delays service delivery and inconveniences suppliers and contractors, it also creates avenues for corruption, where suppliers and contractors have to bribe county government officials to have their payments literally fast-tracked. It is vital that this loophole be sealed. Monies meant for devolved units must not be unnecessarily withheld by the national government. Chair, you recall that before I came here, I had a small discussion with you on what is appearing in the press today, that both the national government and the Council of Governors have threatened to deregister the doctors. Well, I must, you know, some of us are just there because for the love of this country, to always give you the red flag. And I must tell you, Constitution 2010 is so clear on the matter of the Bill of Rights. In fact, in this regard, we have one of the best constitutions in the world. The Bill of Rights, which make it mandatory for citizens of this country to recognize the basic freedoms as enshrined in the Bill of Rights are inalienable. Therefore, you cannot threaten, leave alone do anything else, threaten to deregister unions. This is definitely archaic. It does not belong to the Kenya that we want to see further transformed. And therefore, to withdraw even what you have given to the doctors, and I thank you because you told me that this is not actually the case. Yeah? If you negotiate, the principle of negotiation, I'm happy to see my friends from South Sudan, is you must do so with good faith, negotiate in good faith. And I'm quite sure when the doctors say CBA, they're so clear, they're completely apolitical. They even shouted at me and said, listen, Mr. Former Vice President, we do not want to hear anything about Jubilee or NASA. We just talk CBA, Collective Bargaining Agreement. You cannot run away from having to deal with them from a position of good faith. And therefore, when Kenyans wake up and they read the doctors have been sent to prison for whatever reason, it doesn't augur well for this land, which we so love, which is so beautiful. But even as I fought the national government for its errors of omission and commission, I must state here that a number of governors and their juniors have failed Kenyans by engaging in vices that make a mockery of the devolution dream. Massive corruption has crept up in devolved units where funds are either outrightly embezzled or cost for goods and services are inflated to astronomical amounts by corrupt officials in collusion, obviously, sometimes with rogue contractors. And I'm quite sure, as Council of Governors, you know this has been a major challenge. I strongly believe that lifestyle audits are necessary for all national and county officials if we are to slay the dragon of corruption. But the big question is, who will bail the cat? The Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission, EACC, the Judiciary, the Directorate of Public Prosecution? We have answers as NASA to these questions. So that I do not frighten you. When Nigeria went the devolution way, The first crop of governors, a lot of them, ended up in jail. I don't wish any of you go that way. Because clearly you are trailblazers. You have tried to do the best you can, but where excesses have been committed, I think it's important to own up. I must remind myself and my colleagues in NASA that the coalition agreement that is already filed with the Registrar of Political Parties, bringing about the National Super Alliance, makes it very clear. We must be different from our friends in Jubilee. It will not be business as usual. And therefore, for us, any public officer who will be named as having participated in corruption and corrupt deals will have as a first measure to step aside. That is a given. Whether it is a president, the deputy president, or whoever under NASA. This is very clear to us. So that we now must begin to live the true dream of fighting and slaying the dragon of corruption. May I talk about women's empowerment and congratulate them that this is the Women's International Day. We are very proud of the Kenyan woman, the Kenyan girl child. We are truly proud. I would therefore not have done justice to this conference if I did not speak about what Devolution has done to empower our mothers, our sisters, and indeed our daughters. And today being the International Women's Day, it is important to list the gains that Devolution has brought to Kenya. These include reduced maternal mortality rates following construction of more hospitals, health centers, and dispensaries. The ongoing doctor strike notwithstanding. Likewise, more women can now access clean water than ever before. It is instructive to know that women form majority of the Kenyan population, with an estimated 80% of them living in rural areas, playing invisible national economic development roles. Conversely, men dominate leadership and key decision-making positions across board. Kenya is a signatory to various international discrimination and gender equality conventions, and these conventions include International Convention on the Elimination of All Forms of Racial Discrimination that entered into force on the 4th of January 1979, as well as a Convention for the Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination against Women that also entered into force on the 18th of December 1979. However, despite efforts, the socio-economic and political context demonstrates some of the factors that constrain women's abilities to claim and experience their rights and entitlement in leadership and decision-making positions. According to a recent report, although women make up more than 50% of the Kenyan population, only 63 out of 349 members of parliament are elected. No women were elected as governors. And this is a challenge to all of us. I can't blame any of you, but I want to congratulate those of you who actually picked women as your running mates. We really must congratulate you for that, because that is in recognition of the importance of gender. No women were elected as governors again, and only 88 out of the 1,450 seats in county governments are held by women. This is a reflection of a serious underrepresentation of women in governance and in decision-making structures. It is evident that in order to achieve transparent and accountable governance, getting women empowered in social, economic, and political status is key, indeed mandatory. Without the active participation of women and the incorporation of women's perspective at all levels of decision-making, the goals of equality, of development, and peace cannot be achieved. Despite the constitutional requirement to ensure gender balance in the National Assembly and the Senate, the number of women MPs is discouraging to those who cherish this gender parity. On the 28th of April and on the 5th of May 2016, the Kenya National Assembly rejected the Constitution Amendment Bill number 4 of 2015, which sought to ensure that the National Assembly and the Senate would comprise of a membership that is not more than 2/3 of either gender. We in NASA pledge to ensure that this grave anomaly of gender underrepresentation is not only rectified, but that the 2/3 gender rule is activated even within Parliament in the devolved units. This will give Kenyan women leverage to actively take part in the nation's political, socio-economic affairs. We need to empower our women folk even more to right the wrongs that have been committed upon them over decades. I personally commit myself, Mr. Chairman, towards this goal. Affirmative action is a must. But on the same vein, I urge our women to redouble their efforts to ensure that they fully take part to chart Kenya's political destiny. I must conclude my remarks by wishing you, Mheshimiwa Governor Peter Munya and your team, all the best as you prepare to face up the Kenyan electorate on the 8th of August. I know a lot of you, and I know you have done the very best to bring about the reality of devolution. So as you face up, it will be a wonderful thing to have you continue in your second term. When I say this, I'm not campaigning for any of you. I've been accused before of making such statements. But we must recognize that these are men and women at the level of deputy governors, at least, who have been, as I say, trailblazers. And I know that it's like everybody has since realized that to become a governor, that is really where the real power is. And yes, power. But remember, power corrupts. And if you make yourself an absolute wielder of power, then you run the risk of being absolutely corrupt. Is in that the challenge you are facing as a nation? Therefore, I celebrate this very important day. And I'm truly honored because I suspect very strongly there will not be another devolution conference called the 5th Devolution Conference before the general election. So let me be the one to wish you well. And even as I do so, I wish myself even exceedingly well. And may that slip of the tongue, though historically incorrect, be your intention for yours truly. We love this nation. And I celebrate you, ladies and gentlemen. This is a wonderful nation. At the end of the day, we are all one people, one nation, one people, one great nation, whose potential is yet to be realized. May God bless the Council of Governors, Devolution, and our great nation, Kenya. Thank you.